Oh,
Wiley.
they started with 5, there's only one left.
Yeah, I was say Wiley Coyote.
And he thought that.
Hey, I'd like to welcome everyone to our budget workshop.
Oh, we did this last time.
Last time.
Try again.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our budget workshop. Tara Dunford, our CPA, will be presenting the budget this evening. Tara, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Happy to be back here for another budget year. This is the first presentation of the preliminary budget. It is missing the mayor's budget letter. The legal deadline for that is November 2nd this year, so it will be included in the packet for November 5th and posted on the website ahead of time, and we will discuss the budget again on November 5th. If there are any changes between this version and next version, we'll highlight them and go over them next time. So tonight is going over all of the numbers in the preliminary budget. You'll see the full document for the first time, have a chance to ask questions. Definitely provide feedback to us if there's things that you want more information on, then we can compile that information and come back with it for next time. Additionally, tonight is the meeting where we'll have a public hearing on revenue sources. So this is the document we went over briefly last time about the general fund revenue projections for next year. In November, we have budget action items at both meetings. So November 5th, we'll do a public hearing on the preliminary budget. So this document that you're looking at now. First read of the property tax ordinance, where you'll be asked to consider a 1% increase or not. Another presentation on the budget, along with the mayor's message. On November 19th, we will adopt the property tax ordinance, regardless of whether or not you want to authorize a 1% increase, you still need an ordinance. So even if it's a 0%, you need an ordinance for that. So that will occur on November 19th. It has to get to the county by the end of November. We'll do a public hearing on the final budget. So that document may or may not be the same as this one. If there's changes, again, we'll highlight them at every meeting so that it's really transparent what the changes are from version to version. Same as we did last year. November 19th will be the first read of the actual budget ordinance, and then budget adoption is scheduled for December 3rd. If council is not ready to adopt on December 3rd, you can push it to a later meeting in December, but we do need the budget to be adopted by the end of the year. So, a little overview on the calendar. I'll pause for breaks, but if you have questions along the way, let me know. This can be informal. The budget book itself is in the same format as last year, so I won't go through everything that's in here, but just as a general statement, we are adopting the budget at the fund level. So council adopts the budget and approves the budget at the fund level. The mayor can authorize transfers between departments within funds. Anything that goes over at the fund level needs to come back to council for a budget amendment via ordinance. And we do have one of those that we'll discuss later tonight related to the 2025 budget. Let's skip over the generic and jump to the budget summary. Sure, let me see if I can move this. Okay, so this is a budget summary. We'll go over the funds in more detail on further pages, later pages, but this is at the summarized level. So beginning fund balance is equal to beginning cash in each fund. This, of course, is an estimate or a projection based on year-to-date actuals in 2025 and where we think we'll end 2025. So they are estimates only. Revenues and expenditures shown in separate columns with a net increase or decrease shown, and then ending fund balance being cash. The increases and decreases are fairly minimal in all funds except for the sewer fund, where we are showing currently a significant increase of $470,000, increase being revenues over expenses. The reason for that is we don't know what our expenses are going to be for next year with Aberdeen, so we've only put our known expenses in. Hopefully, as we move through the budget process, we'll have better estimates and we can adjust this number. The other thing you'll notice here is the beginning fund balance is really high, estimated to be $599,000. Now, if the city were to settle with Aberdeen this year and pay a bill, that number is going to change. So that's one line item that I think will change as we move through this process. So this is just very preliminary numbers at this point for sewer especially.
You finding what we're looking
I'm not
at?
seeing the budget summary.
Maybe they don't have it right.
Oh, is it not in your? It is on the screen, but I don't know about what's in the packet.
Page 9 in the packet.
8 and 9 in the packet.
Yeah, page 9
Yep, that's right here.
should be the summary.
On this, you're looking at this one?
I just ran those packets, so if it's not in, I apologize.
Okay.
We will
No,
get it.
Page 9.
It wasn't out there when I came in, it was just the other one,
Oh,
so I
oh,
didn't
okay.
know there was a second one.
Okay.
The next page is a summary of authorized positions. So there have been some changes between 2025 and 2026. The full-time permanent positions are shown, so police chief, police officer, a senior utility worker, and 2 regular utility workers. The pay ranges shown reflect a 3% cost of living increase, so that's the number proposed by the mayor and that's what the budget is based on. Council has the authority to approve that rate, deny it, suggest a different rate, so keep in mind that all of the numbers that we're looking at reflect this 3% cost of living adjustment. These pay ranges shown here reflect a 3% increase as well. Again, this is the mayor's proposed pay range for next year and proposed positions for next year, which council has the ability to discuss and modify as you would like to. As far as the part-time and contract positions, the utility worker and building inspector have no change in hours or structure from the current budget. The clerk treasurer is budgeted at 24 hours a week for 2026. Junior deputy clerk at 24 hours a week as well. Utility billing clerk and police clerk are 2 separate part-time positions, both at 16 hours a week. And then court administrator and fire chief are contracted positions, based on a contract rather than an hourly employee. I'll pause there if there's questions on the wage scale or.
So what did you mean by 3%? Where is the 3%? Is that the 117, is that the numbers that we're looking for the low high for the pay range?
The police chief position actually has, and I need to look at these, why the low and high are the same. I will check on that. It shouldn't be that way. Yeah, let me look into that. They are 3% higher than 2025 rates. But I think the low high here has an error in the formula, so I will fix that for next time. I'm sorry about that.
It's all good.
Okay.
So actually, maybe the utility worker, the last one down there, those do reflect the 3% between the 57.97 and the 69.60?
So it's not a 3% between the high and low, it's a 3% increase over the 2025 rate.
Okay, okay.
So the 2025 rates were lower, we're increasing them by 3% to get the 2026 rate.
I see.
Yeah, the job position itself has a high and a low range.
Correct, and those are definitely not correct, I'm sorry. I think the highs are right and the lows are probably wrong, but I will fix that for next time.
So I just had one question on the first one, was the budget summary one. So
Yes.
our street fund, are we thinking we're giving out $2,400 in it?
That is correct. So the street fund is subsidized by the general fund.
Do you know what this 120 expenditure, so the street fund, that would have been, if we So the 122,000 expenditure, that would have been when we had repairs for like leaks and all that kind of stuff?
This is your total budget projected for 2026, so we will dig into what's included in that in a moment. That's all the salaries, benefits, and allocations, et cetera, that goes into that. Total expenditures, total revenues. Now the street budget, like I said, it's subsidized by the general fund, so we're typically going to balance this to have a $0 increase or decrease. It's always going to be balanced by the general fund in that the utility taxes allocated to the street fund are going to be higher or lower to cover the expenses. As far as the general fund summary, I want to just bring back up the general fund revenue projections that we'll have a public hearing on because it gives a little bit more detail than the summary report. So again, just to reiterate what we talked about last time, we're projecting a very small increase of 3% in total revenues over the 2025 budgeted revenues. The property tax increase of 1% equates to $4,300. It's really, really small. We're seeing really small increases in sales and use tax, B&O tax. Electric utility taxes are still going down. And the one highlight that we have going for us is an increase in the city assistance distribution from the state. Basically, if you have very low sales tax revenue per capita, the state's going to increase the amount of subsidy that you get. So that's a small benefit to having low sales tax numbers. So that preliminary revenue forecast that we'll have a public hearing on, the total matches what we have in the 2026 budget document. For our 2026 projected general fund budget, we are balanced in terms of revenues equaling expenditures, so that's really good. The bad thing is our fund balance is still really, really low. It would be great to get that up to 120,000 at a minimum. That would be 10% of expenses. You know, getting some momentum going on that would be great. At this point, just simply balancing the budget has been enough of a challenge. I will say this reflects the current staffing, so I know council's going to be considering possibly changing how law enforcement is staffed or contracted. These numbers are based on your current arrangement, so if you maintain the status quo of what you have, this is what the numbers would look like. If you went a different path, that would hopefully result in some cost savings that could help you build up your fund balance or utilize the resources elsewhere. So across the board, we're seeing really consistent numbers in every function from 2025 to 2026. Legislative, for example, we're going up, from 23,800 to 24,352. So really small increases in all categories. This is a very lean budget with nothing major added. There has been added a little bit more to community events and parks because we find when we get to this time of the year, there's things breaking and repairs needed, and we're having to come back and ask for a budget amendment. So we tried to add a little bit in there. What little extra there was added there to community events and parks. But that was very minimal dollars. So again, it's good in that it's balanced, bad in that we're still showing a really low fund balance. And again, there's just a note here that EMS was moved to a separate fund. So if you look at the budgeted expenditures going back to 2024, they're a lot higher because we had this line with fire control and ambulance, including EMS. So there was no big actual cost savings here. It was just moving to a different fund. The fire equipment fund has a significant increase in expenditures for capital outlay, $87,000, but $83,000 of that is grant funded. So there's a small match of $4,000 in there, which is great. That is drawing down the fund balance ever so slightly. Nothing that I'm concerned about from a management standpoint. There's not a whole lot of cash in there anyways. This is one of the kind of extra funds that I'd probably like to see the city close down or use differently in the future, but we have it now, so we'll continue to budget for it. Equipment reserve, this is a portion of the utility tax as per code, and it's used for payment on the Springbrook software. So again, it's in my opinion, a kind of an extra unnecessary fund that could be part of the general fund, but you have it, so we're continuing along with it. And then nothing's really changing here from year to year. Drug seizure, yet another kind of extra fund that has had $700 in it for many, many years and no activity, but we continue to show it in the book so that we are sharing that we have this fund. Advanced payment cemetery, this is if someone wants to pay in advance, as it sounds like. Again, not too much money in there, but we're going to include it in the budget document anyways. I'll pause here. Are there questions so far on any of these summaries?
What were you talking about that we might be able to eliminate and dissolve back into the general fund? Was that the fire equipment or the equipment reserve?
I would say both. And in fact, all of these first 4 extra ones that we've talked about, advanced payment cemetery, well, actually even that one I would roll in just because it truly is advanced payments. You do have a cemetery reserve fund that I would keep separate, but these first 4 don't need to be separate funds. It's quite cumbersome from a budget and accounting perspective to maintain a separate fund for $8,000 or $700 when we could easily account for that within the financial system.
And is this something we should maybe dissolve before we finalize the budget for this upcoming year?
You could, I mean, it's hard without having a clerk treasurer on board. From my perspective, I like to not change too much since I'm not the person that's going to be here living with the changes.
Yeah.
So generally I would say wait till you have your permanent person on and let them do some of this cleanup in the way that makes most sense to them. But it's really up to council ultimately. If you say get rid of these and clean them up, then we can make that happen. It is just a little bit more administrative work on the back end at a time when you are limited in that
Gotcha.
sense.
It's not a cost-saving measure to change it.
No, it would be my makes work project for Casey and Kenzie right now,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Macarenco Park operating, so this is funded by the interest on the Macarenco Park Reserve Trust Fund. We are requesting a slight increase in expenses in 2026 based on 2025 projected. Again, things keep breaking, the fence that needs repair, there's always things happening, we have to come back and do a budget amendment, so we decided let's just request enough money to cover the actual time that staff are spending down there, and come up with a reasonable budget. It's still under $24,000, it's a very modest budget, in my opinion, but more resources are being allocated here than in past years.
So are you saying then that is things that are gonna actually get done the next following year if we approve that that's coming up?
That would be a question for the mayor.
Yeah. That's a plan.
You know, I'm just saying, it requires staff to do that, so if we approve it and it doesn't happen, then what is that?
Surplus.
The money would just stay there in this fund. So if all the money wasn't spent, then it would accumulate in the ending fund balance and you could use it in future years if you needed like a more major improvement, you'd have more cash available. Here's a street fund that's showing all of the revenues and expenses. So the taxes that you're seeing here, the 82,276, part of this is the motor vehicle fuel tax, but the bulk of it is utility tax and property tax distribution. So the city allocates a portion of utility taxes and property taxes to the street fund. If you cut the street budget, that would free up more resources for the general fund. So that's how these two fit together. And when I say that the street fund is subsidized by the general fund, what I'm really meaning is this tax distribution that's going to the street fund is getting taken away from the general fund in order to balance this fund. We try to balance this down to zero here so that we're balancing our revenues and expenses and showing truly how much we're taking from the general fund. In order to balance this, it's about half of it, just under half is salaries and benefits, and then we have other operating expenses, which I can give you a little bit more detail on. And so we have various categories here, office and operating supplies, $6,000, professional services, $5,000, road maintenance, repairs and maintenance, $5,000. There's just a variety of small line items. The biggest one will be street lighting, utility costs, so electricity bill at $33,000 is your biggest line item in streets. And other than that, it is really small line items for office and operating supplies. We do also allocate a portion of the insurance bill, so $7,000 of the city's liability insurance gets allocated to the street fund. Questions on any of this so far?
Maybe at the end, I'm trying to
Okay.
think of the question, how I'm gonna word it, but I
No
don't know how to
problem.
word it right now.
Okay. EMS, so this is our new fund that we started in 2025 for EMS. It has a small surplus in it. Basically, the charges for services cover. It's almost completely a pass-through to Aberdeen. I believe that this is in negotiation with Aberdeen, but most likely their rates doubled. Most likely Cosmopolis's rates will double as well. We have that reflected in the current budget numbers. If that changes, we would update accordingly.
So are we doing that also with, because we have this, at the end of the year, we have all of our contracts as far as garbage, water, police, EMS, and all of them. So are all of those projected in here that are coming up?
All of the ones we know about, so when we know that there's an increase, we factor them into the budget. If we don't know what the increase will be, we'll put a baseline, increase it 3 or 5%, what it's been before. The police contract is based on the existing contract. Of course, that could change if you decide to go a different route.
Now, I know Aberdeen is looking at their contract, or they have not finalized theirs yet, though, right? The police.
I don't believe they have.
Yeah.
The union contract or the
Yeah.
contract with Cosmopolis?
No, their union contract.
They have not
They have
finalized.
finalized it.
And they're still actually negotiating the EMS rate or for themselves or with us, I know.
They're
With Cosmopolis. They adopted.
They adopted theirs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they did it last
So
couple weeks.
we'll be starting our negotiations for the EMS agreement probably in the next week or two.
Okay.
The Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund, this is a fund that I would recommend keeping and keeping it separate. The idea is that in this current phase that you're in of selling lots, that some of the proceeds per code half go into the Perpetual Care Fund and half go into the General Maintenance Fund. And then the idea is when all of your lots are sold, this Perpetual Care Fund will have built up and be enough to hopefully maintain all of the lots going forward. The 2020 UPGO fund, this is our problem fund. So this is the bond fund for City Hall. The first problem in this is that the fund was set up incorrectly. So I think we've talked about this and that typically you would have a separate capital fund and a separate debt service fund. So if we had done this correctly at the start, the $3 million that you got in bond proceeds would have gone into a separate capital project fund, and all of your expenses would have come out of that. This 2020 UPCO fund would have only accounted for the property tax levy and debt service payment. So we're commingling two things that should have been separate here. So that's the first kind of point of confusion in this. And then the second thing is we're showing this huge projected deficit. We had a meeting, I can't remember when I presented on this, earlier this year, we talked about the fact that this building went $430,000 over budget. I have a little snippet I can share with you. It's not pretty, but we have some updated numbers we'll share in the budget amendment discussion. But just to reiterate what happened with the bond, we had $3 million of bond proceeds. The Roglins contract was almost $3 million. I think part of the issue was that sales tax wasn't included in the budget. And perhaps this is just a guess on me trying to interpret documents, and what happened is it seems like the construction contract maybe was trying to be close to $3 million, but then Harbor Architects wasn't factored into that, and their bill was $362,000 in total, and then you had some other random expenses incurred, attorney fees and fixtures and sidewalks and things that had to be done. So the net amount, and then 1 year there was an error in the property tax levy, so this gets us down to a $430,000 shortfall. So we're showing the fund in the budget as being significantly negative. You might ask, why are you projecting only $112,000 when you just said it's $430,000? We'll talk about that in the budget amendment. We have a potential solution for a good chunk of this. It's not gonna account for all of it. We will hopefully resolve the difference with real estate excise tax. I'll talk about that more in the budget amendment. Where the 2026 budget is, we have these negative cash balances. That's a problem that needs to be handled. We'll talk about that. But as far as the 2026 budget itself, we have tax revenue of $188,000, and the same, the debt service is $188,000. Well, $200 less, but this is the debt service on the building. So contractors have been paid in full. Everything's been paid for except the 88 doors, which my understanding is those are just under $4,000. So that's going to increase our shortfall a little bit, but other than that, it's my understanding everything's been paid for. You are levying a property tax to pay the debt service on the $3 million. So you're still paying that back, in addition to needing to pay off the $430,000 from some source. Now, real estate excise tax.
Who are we paying the $400,000 to?
Who are you paying? Well, that was what was paid to. So the 430 is what you overspent.
Oh,
So you got 3 million, and then it went to these different sources. Now, part of what I'm hoping will happen is once you get your comprehensive plan done and updated and approved by council, I'm hoping you'll be able to access the dollars that are in your real estate excise tax to cover this shortfall. So if we go back, we have a shortfall, we think around 243. Once we put the doors on, it's gonna be 247. But you're gonna have over 300,000 in the real estate excise tax by the fund at the end of next year. That money's never been touched. So that's great in a sense, because it can potentially solve this problem. The bad news is if you didn't have this problem, you could have used this money for some other capital improvement. So it's good you have it, and unfortunately you can't use it on anything else other than solving a problem. The water fund is budgeted to have a slight decrease in fund balance. This is actually based on not having any rate increase though, so if council does approve a rate increase, we would bump up our revenue estimates for next year and then balance this down to zero. I'm not too concerned with having a slight decrease in fund balance because your debt service here is gonna drop off eventually, so it's kind of okay. From an operating standpoint, this is fine. What we don't know about is what your capital needs are. So at an ending fund balance of 116,000, operationally, that's just fine. What I don't know is, do you have $500,000 of capital that's critical that you need, or 5 million, or 10,000? I have no idea what that number is. So if nobody knows, that's something to look into, and that really should be done in conjunction with a rate study so that you're building up fund balance adequate to pay for your capital needs. The sewer fund, again, we're showing a big surplus here because I don't have anything projected for Aberdeen for 25 or 26. We know it's going to be something, we have no idea what yet. So I just left it at zero for now. At some point in the budget process, we'll add a number so that there's at least a placeholder budget in there. That's what we did in 2025. We put 470 in there just simply because that's how much cash you had available to budget. And we may likely do the same thing, but it'll be helpful to know if we're going to pay anything in 25 or if it's all going to happen in 26. That will help update both of these columns and get the right number in for 2026. So placeholder now, and we discussed in detail last time what goes into the expense line as far as salary and benefits and others, but we can certainly go into that in more detail at any time in the process. Stormwater fund is looking good, again, same as water though. We have an ending fund balance, almost 200,000. That might be fantastic if you have $100,000 of capital needs, but if you have $1 million of capital needs, it's not good, not enough. So again, this is something to look at. I believe the city is in process of a rate study for stormwater, which would drive a discussion of what your capital needs are and the costs associated with those relative to your current rate structure. But operationally, this fund looks fine. Macrankle Park Reserve, so this fund is the trust fund that accounts for the original deposit of $320,000. You'll notice that if we go back to the beginning of 2024, this balance in the fund was less than the original trust deposit. We have righted that and made sure that our cash balance is intact now. And as long as I am helping the city, I would certainly not recommend that we ever pilfer from that fund again. It is a trust account and should not be accessed for any reason. So we have brought up the cash balance back to where it should be, and we are budgeting only using interest proceeds for next year and maintaining a balance that is in fact higher than the trust deposit in the 2026 budget. That means you can access this. There's roughly a $40,000 surplus in here. You could access that if there was a major capital need at the park. You'd have those funds available for spending.
So is it because we have an excess because the state ordered them to repay the money plus interest? So I would imagine that the plus interest, now that goes back into the fund, does
Yep.
that still mean that we get that's still excess, even
It's
though it
still
was required to
Yes.
pay back?
Yep, so you're seeing these interfund loan repayments, so the $30,000 that's included in the 2026 budget is going back into the fund. It's increasing your ending cash balance and bringing it whole again. Yeah, and really this excess should only be used on Macrankle Park, not on loaning other funds money. And here's the interfund loan schedule for you. There are still small amounts outstanding. At the end of 2026, we'll have about $32,000 owing to that Macrankle Park fund. So that's going to increase your surplus even more going into the 2027 budget. which is good. The funds are where they need to be and accessible for what they are restricted for.
What happened to the two older bonds that we had talked about a while ago?
That is a great question. You'll notice they are totally gone
They
in this
are.
budget. Well,
Were they finally released?
this is my optimistic hope that council will approve what we're going to recommend related to these bonds. So when we discussed the budget amendment during the regular meeting, we are recommending that council access those bond funds, transfer, so state law says that excess bond funds are transferred to the general fund. So you have two, you have the 1997 fire and the LID bond fund. We reached out to Cynthia Weed, who was bond counsel on the original bonds. She's been around for, I think, about 50 years and is an absolute expert, and she pointed us to the RCW that said these proceeds go back to the general fund. So the budget amendment is recommending that we transfer the proceeds to the general fund. From there, they can be used for any governmental purpose, including paying for this building. So, we're going to recommend close them down, transfer to the general fund, and then transfer to your bond fund to cover a good chunk of that $430,000 problem. Not all of it, but a good chunk of it. If council says, no, we don't like that, we want to use those, keep those funds or whatever, if the budget amendment isn't approved, then we would add them back into the 2026 budget. But since those things tie together, I wanted to show that we hope they'll be gone.
Yeah, kinda needed.
So with the budget amendment, do we, I see how written up, but do we have to, are there certain parts of this that we could take out of there? Or does it have to be the whole encompassing the way you have it written up?
You could,
Say we
You
like
could
all
do
of
it
but maybe
differently.
one or two, you know, or.
I'll say my opinion, I believe you have to transfer the full amount to the general fund because state law doesn't allow for any other thing, but
No, I meant all of the different whereases that you have here.
yes.
Do this whole deal, we cannot say, well, you know, we don't
No,
want that.
you can change any of the
That's
budget
what I meant.
amendment,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
we can change any of it.
Yeah.
So if you said, so we're gonna recommend we close down these bond funds, for example, and transfer them to the general fund, you could say, yeah, we know there's a problem with the city hall bond fund, but we'd rather keep these monies in the general fund and increase our fund balance and solve the problem later in a different way. You could say that, or you could say we don't like any piece of the budget amendment. You can approve it as is or as modified.
May I ask, in your expertise and our CPA, what would you recommend?
I feel comfortable with the budget amendment as written, but I think we should definitely go through it in detail of all the line items included, and council can ask questions and make changes as appropriate. I really think those bond funds are well spent on solving this city hall problem, yeah.
Any other questions from council, or can I jump to my next one?
Oh, go ahead.
For the water, there was a suggestion of a possible rate increase. Is there any professional suggestion that you would throw a percentage out there that we should think about?
I would at least do like a 3% cost of living CPI type adjustment. I honestly don't know if your code calls for anything default like that, but I would do something to increase this. It's really hard to say because, like I said, operationally, you look at this fund and think it's just fine. It's operating a little surplus, you have a little cash in there. The big thing we don't know is the capital. There is no separate capital fund for water. This is it. This is all you have. So if you have a major water line break, major incident, you have $100,000.
Gotcha.
So that's not my expertise. Is that the right number? I'm guessing
no,
no,
but-
it's probably pretty low.
Yeah, it makes sense of what you're explaining, though. It makes, 116 isn't much if we have catastrophic failure in one or two spots across the town.
Right, yep.
And if fellow council, if you wanna jump in, please feel free to cut me off. Real estate excise tax? What is that? How do we accumulate $309,000?
That's a 0.5% tax on sale of real estate within the city limits. It's actually broken into first quarter and second quarter. I'm not sure if you levy both or just one quarter, but it's going in here. It's restricted for capital purposes, per RCW. The sticking point with this, the reason you've never spent it is you have to have a comp plan. So the projects have to be identified in a comprehensive plan. To my knowledge, the city has never formally adopted a comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Therefore, you weren't ever able to spend these.
Yep, that
these
makes
monies.
sense.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is because the Fourth Street around the school has gotten to a catastrophic failure type of degree. And we need to work on getting that road redone, now that the school's development and construction is wrapping up. So if we use some of that to go elsewhere, we still leave a chunk of money that could get put into the street, because the streets are a part of the comp plan. I believe.
Potentially, so we're projecting we'll still have a $243,000 to $250,000 problem with the bond fund,
Yeah.
and we have about just over 300,000 in REIT, so yes, conceivably, there could be $50,000 left, yeah.
That street has needed repair for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and
But
the construction made it worse.
was part of the construction bid,
To get the road redone, I don't think so.
no, I'll go ahead.
So I will add, we're working closely with COG on some grants and some other funding, and they're also assisting us with our comprehensive plan.
Just something, because that road's getting, the winter's gonna make it rough.
Yeah. And next one,
My goodness, 4 out of the 5 of us live on 4th Street.
I'm not, that is irrelevant.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, bing, 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 yeah, okay.
one of them was guilty as charged.
Like I said, I'm worried about the teachers in the school and the children that are getting dropped off. So for the EMS fund, fire equipment fund, equipment reserve fund, is that EMS fund, should that be something we dissolve back into general fund? Because fire equipment and EMS, I don't know why those are split.
I was not necessarily on board with creating a new EMS fund. It was the preference of the prior city clerk to go forth and do that. It's not harming anything to keep it separate. I think the goal was that there would be more resources accumulated in there, but that's not actually reality when it's almost 100% pass through. You collect the money and it goes to Aberdeen. So in that sense, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep a separate fund.
The EMS fund is being funded through the utility bill.
Correct,
I remember when that got approved.
yeah. And it used to just be a general fund revenue and a general fund expense and net zero.
And technically dissolving some of these things, like you mentioned, right now doesn't make the biggest difference, but to simplify the general fund and simplify the process as you work with many cities, you probably see a lot of these budgets.
Yeah, now if you're an EMS where you actually have significant operating expenses, so say Aberdeen where they have staff and they have a whole department,
Yeah.
it makes sense to have a separate fund. Here, where you're taking all the money and giving it all to Aberdeen, why do we need a whole separate fund for that? It can just be it used to be a general fund line item, it can be. EMS, it's if it's not 100% paid for by the charges for services, it can be subsidized by the general fund, that's perfectly allowable. And when you have that scenario, then it in my mind, just makes sense to keep it in the general fund, because the general fund's gonna be paying the difference anyways.
Gotcha, okay, that makes a little more sense, I'm just trying to understand it.
Mhm.
Well, I believe the intent behind the EMS fund was to build up resources enough to where we could eventually part with Aberdeen as far as get away from
Gotcha.
transport. I believe that was the intent, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and that could be, that will be hard under the current
Yeah.
contract where you're basically giving them 100% of what you collect.
Because I remember having quite a few discussions with our previous fire chief in regards to our EMS and the EMS fund.
May I ask a
I don't know if that
question?
sheds any more light on it for you, but.
Yeah, it makes a little sense.
So going into EMS negotiations, not knowing what that's going to look like, would it be, should we wait to see what that looks like? If there was a possibility of change?
The 2026 budget, and I just noticed, and gosh, I hate this when I find errors, this needs to have a header that says 2026. This should be 2026 budget. This is worst case scenario, so we know that, well, I hope it's worst case scenario that Aberdeen's not going to come back and say, we raised our rate to 67, 54, whatever it is, but we're gonna charge Cosmopolis 80, like, I don't see that happening. This is worst case scenario, this is the doubling, so to me, it makes sense to keep it. If it's lower, great, then no budget amendments necessary. But that's completely up to you and the council.
So you said we were looking at the rate, utility rate increase, but just for the water, what about, so are we looking at any of the other utility rates? So what do we get B&O, how does the B&O, because I know we don't get a lot of B&O from our businesses.
You don't get a lot of B&O. I believe that you are,
How are we allowed to increase that?
I believe that you are maxed out on the B&O. Let me check that.
Cafe Kenworth will help with that next year.
What was that again, Kelly?
Cafe
We're
Kenworth,
not doing comments from the audience at this time.
Okay, I just wanted to hear what she said.
Well, that will be, yeah, see how that goes.
I'll catch up with you afterwards.
I mean, we're almost at the end of the workshop. I think we should open it to the public for comments.
Okay, is the council, at this time, is the council finished with questions?
Well, I was still wondering about the B&O.
Hey, I just wanted to find it without you having to watch me click through many
Oh, yeah.
internet pages, so here we go. So the 0.002 is the limit, the state law limit. I believe you are, yeah, you're maxed out
Oh,
on that.
So
across the board.
that's made by the state then? is what
That's a
you're saying?
state law. Some cities like Aberdeen is at 0.003 on retail. They're grandfathered in. They had higher rates before the state law went into effect,
Wow.
but it is currently 0.002, so you're already at the maximum there.
So basically, we could just, since we can't raise that, it would have to just, basically, we needed more income, would have to be from like utility.
Utility tax
rates.
is your option.
Yeah, utility
Yeah.
rates and across, not just citizens, but businesses and everything.
Yeah, so utility rates are an option to bring in revenue. That would bring in revenue to your utility funds.
Right,
The
yeah.
sewer, we know a rate increase is going to have to come. It's just a matter of how big of an increase. Water, likely you need a rate increase depending on your capital needs.
Right.
Stormwater is getting a rate study, so I would assume that consultant will come back and bring you suggested rates.
Right.
You also have your utility tax that you
Right.
can raise in order to generate more resources for the general fund. Now, I believe your utility tax rate is already quite high.
That also means we could look at,
It's, well, you have your 13.5% total, so 8.5% to general fund and streets, and then another 5%. So 13.5, it's pretty high. There is no legal limit on it. You could
Right.
go, I've seen cities that charge 25%. That's quite steep, but
Yeah.
you could do that if you wanted to.
right, because we can look at individual businesses too, as far as, how they're changed, or look at that too, as far as their rates and all that too. Right.
So any other questions from the council? So at this time, open up to public comment, questions. Do we have any? Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment on the prior meetings. We talked about selling of the lot over here. And if, this is my opinion, but with that lot and with the deficit that we have, that I don't believe that money, if it sells, should go directly to what's owed on that building. It's shouldn't just go into the general fund when that building has a deficit. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions?
I got a comment, I'll answer your question, Mark. With Cafe Kenworth going in, they'll be operational in '26. D&O is collected in the city in which you provide your sales analysis, and it's based on gross income. So, just throw out a number. If Cafe Kenworth does $20 million in annual revenue on a gross basis, that's approximately $40,000 of D&Os that would come into the city.
So,
So that's, that would be helpful.
Very much so.
I know that when we had the Peterbilt store down there, Corey would try and run as many sales through Cosmopolis as he could, because the tax rate in Cosmopolis is lower than it is in other areas, and so they would try and run sales through the Peterbilt store. So that's always a positive too. So.
and I think we are really working to look at all businesses and their B&O, and because there is a big discrepancy that we're seeing in some of the B&O, and we are looking at that, and we're going to be addressing that soon. So, any other questions, comments?
I guess my comment on that is a B&O on gross sales for a coffee shop obviously is little tiny money, compared to a big business. So when B&O.
Exactly.
So, and you can't change that, you can't fix that, that's state law, so there is no discrepancy. It's just, it's little business, little money, big business, big money.
And I guess the word discrepancy is not really the word but we are looking into the B&O.
Yeah,
There it is.
there is a discrepancy between visuals,
For sure.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding the budget. So on the sewer, just because there's not a placeholder in there, Tara, based on 2024 dues that we owe the city of Aberdeen, roughly $650,000 that we owe in 2024. If we, just for basic math purposes, say that's also what we owe in 2025, we're looking at around 1.2 to 1.3 million. How do we plug in those numbers into the 2026 budget if in fact we owe 1.3 million to Aberdeen?
If you said 640 is the number for 2025, we would put 640 here in the projected. The problem is that would bring our ending fund balance negative because we only have 599. So we can't pay 640 this year. That's the city just flat out doesn't have the money for that. So even if we paid 600 of it and brought our fund balance down to 0, then if we had a 0 in our fund balance next year, that would leave us 470,000 that was available to pay in 2026. That's all we would have available cash flow wise to pay Aberdeen, regardless of what they build us. We simply wouldn't have it
So
without a rate increase.
So looking at the budget, just in terms of buckets, like that's how I look at buckets of business. I'm just looking at, okay, what's the biggest bucket challenge? The biggest bucket challenge for Cosmopolis would be sewer,
Correct.
right? And we don't know where we are in negotiations yet
Correct.
on repayment,
Correct.
but we do know that we're approximately at the end of Q4 fiscal year 25, we're gonna be in the ballpark of 1.3 million in the red, in arrears.
Well,
Is that accurate?
yes and no. The 640,000 from Aberdeen is not based on an existing contract. It's based on an expired contract. So that's really all up for negotiation.
And that's just part of the negotiations, but we're not any further forward on
Correct.
how to solve that.
So we have a negotiation meeting next week. And that number, did you get a chance to watch last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really explains the sewer and the whole situation we're in. All of that is negotiable. And so basically the sewer is 200 and something, and then the other is capital improvement. And so when we come to the table, we're going to be looking at that. So we've been working on this and
Mayor, I got the receipts from the city of Aberdeen, and it said that the total amount that they invoiced us for 2024 was like 640. We don't have receipts on 2025 yet, but we can expect them like first quarter of the next
do
year.
you want to
Is
speak to
that-
why that's so much,
How is that,
2024?
am I correct in that?
Under the prior contract that expired at the end of 2023,
Yeah.
the contract was written that yes, the bill would be based on a portion of Aberdeen's actual expenditures for that year. So they were always, even if they billed really timely, say they billed you in February, you're still always a year behind.
Yeah.
There were some years, I believe, the billing didn't go out until as late as August.
Which almost makes it even worse.
Yeah, and then the prior administration wasn't managing cash flow, so it's kind of like I equate it to if you go rent an apartment and your landlord says, it's gonna be a pro rata share of all of our expenses, like maybe we have to do a new roof this year, or maybe we don't, and we'll bill you next August for, 15 months of rent, you would think you would start saving that money away, right? That didn't happen.
What I was worried about is when the city of Aberdeen came here and presented to the council, and I know that not all the council members were able to be present at that meeting, it was almost in reference that this bill is coming and you need to figure out how to pay it. And I know we all kind of left here going, holy cow, like what does that mean, even though there's not a contract?
So it was a proposal, and Tara went into depth about why we paid so much in 2024, and that had to do with 22, 23, and 24. That was not paid, and we had to pay that.
Yeah, and I got conflicting information on that, Tara. The data that I got from the city of Aberdeen on freedom of information and this request was that it was the 2024 is the bill that, and then coming 25 is the stuff that's not paid, but those prior years were paid.
The prior years were all paid, they were paid in 2025. Or, I'm sorry, 2024, we got caught up in 2024, everything was
So we
paid up.
were all even at the beginning of that year.
No, so 2024
We had 2023.
and 2022 and part of 2021. So in 2024, we paid $494,000. None of that was related to 2024 services.
Yep.
None at all, it was all related to the 3 prior years.
3 prior years.
Yes, so the bill that Aberdeen sent for $640,000 was related to 2024 services, only 2024 services. But it was not based on a contract.
Right, and so that's really the biggest thing.
Yes.
Okay, so going forward, in terms of the budget, in terms of the city council members, I mean, that is, in your opinion, the one area that we really have to figure out so that we can actually pass a budget resolution.
You can pass a budget without knowing this information. We did in 2020, we were in the same place in 2025. We had no idea what the bill was going to be because the contract was expired at that point as well. The real issue with the sewer is until Cosmopolis can settle with Aberdeen and know what the bill is going to be, we don't know what your rates need to be. If we settle for Aberdeen and Aberdeen says, yeah, we'll take $200,000 a year, then we're in great shape. If Aberdeen says, no, your bill's $1 million a year, then we're looking at huge rate increases. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Okay, it's
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. We are going to move into our council meeting. Would everyone stand, please? Thank you, Tim.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is Mayor Springer. It's Wednesday, October 15th. It's 7 o'clock. And Clerk Rowe, could you tell us how many citizens are joining us online tonight?
It appears 8 are joining us online, and then we have Councilmember Nguyen aside from that.
Okay. And then in person,
5.
okay? So we have Tara, do you want to say this in person?
Oh, what? Well, Tara Dunford, our accountant, CPA, is joining us in person as well, not as citizen, but as part of our presenting for the meeting. And Councilmember Nguyen is online with us. And we also have City Attorney Coker is not on with us.
I
And-
expect he will be though.
And we have Lieutenant Weiss of the Aberdeen Police Department here to present this evening.
And thank you for being here. Would you do roll call, please?
Yes, just one moment, let me unmute Councilmember Nguyen. Councilmember Skinner,
Here.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Present.
Councilmember Spargo,
Here.
Councilmember Colette,
Here.
Councilmember Darcy. Here. All are present.
Okay. Moving on to approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Who
Is
is
it-
second?
Please say your name.
Yeah,
Councilmember Colette.
Councilmember Colette.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So passed. So moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve consent agenda
So moved.
by Councilman?
Skinner.
Darcy, second.
Council Darcy, second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. Council comments, are there any comments at this time? Hearing none, we're moving on to committee reports. Auditing,
I looked over the vouchers this week.
And I didn't have a chance to get into the office.
There's no finance meeting, council member Skinner has been out ill, so we will proceed next month. This month,
Sometime.
sometime this month, yes, we're almost halfway.
okay, thank you. Parks,
As winter approaches, we are trying our best to batten down the hatches and get things tidied up for the winter season. The play equipment at Lions Park is still there. It is boarded off on the top of the slide. The slide has been damaged, and there's been caution tape put on the bottom. We're still working on getting that disassembled, just the playground structure, the new swing sets and the other new accessories will still be there. And the mayor and I have been working on brainstorming some grants to hopefully get that replaced this upcoming summer. That's all I have.
thank you. Public safety,
Yeah, the dam's closed.
Oh, safety.
Oh, was it? Oh, public safety, sorry. Yep. That's public.
She passed on by Parks. Mark, you got some notes there, or?
Well, we had a meeting on Monday, and we were discussing at that time, we were discussing the contract we have with Aberdeen at this time and the possibility of an extension or what it may look like at some future point. And that's,
We had a meeting prior to this one.
yeah, we,
For that money.
too,
One part of it was that the bunker gear issue, and
Yes.
it'll be brought up here
Yes.
in a report next as far as the grant and what we would like to see done with that. And other than that, I don't think we're still waiting on confirmation that the fire, the ambulance and the other rig are now on the surplus. Are they listed yet, Keith?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. I will.
Okay, moving on to Public Works.
Yes.
All right, so we got the dams closed, clean of the fish ladders, they'll be proceeding with that. There's some junk that's got accumulated in there. Grace Harbor College has picked up the backhoe to do repairs on it, so we want to thank them for collaborating with that. Helps save them costs for repairs and gives them people to work on in their classes also. We also have picked up, Donnie had picked up some mutual dumping agreements with the county shop down here as far as when they do the street sweeping and that kind of thing. So they're allowing us to go down there and use their facility down there for that. The flags will be coming down after Veterans Day, and then the Christmas stars will go up. We have a 5-star that allows us to use their truck anytime we need it. So we have that, and just a reminder, everybody, leaves are falling. So if you got drains around your yard, appreciate it if you could go out and try to help keep the drains cleared up of the leaves. It help a lot with that when it starts raining, so we don't get any flooding happening on top of it, so, yeah. And that's about it.
City officials report, Clerk Grove.
We're in budget season, so as far as the perspective from finances, Tara is taking that stuff on for us right now and keeping us in track and keeping us in the move, and that is all.
Okay, Chief Lehman.
I'm ill-prepared. Casey has my written report. I'm so sorry. I was on a call just a couple of minutes ago, and I apologize. Thank you. So, 62 incidents for us since the last report on 9/11 through today. 63 actually now. Calls for service included various things, some death investigation, hit and run, several fire assists for mostly lifts and a diabetic problem, serious assault, drug overdose, some parking complaints, animal complaints, suspicious persons, a child abuse case, and a sex offense. Everything else was handled by Aberdeen for the after-hours call contract, which they've got some numbers for you when they speak. But that's pretty much the dance that I've been doing in between all the other stuff.
Yeah, and at this time, Lieutenant Weiss, would you like to give Aberdeen's report?
I will, good evening. So right now, since so far this year, we're at 138 calls for service for you guys. And since May 1st of last year, we're at 257. So that's where we're currently at.
Okay.
And we have a breakdown too, but I know we gave you guys all a copy of that.
I think it was included in that.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you very much, and we appreciate it. Moving on, Chief Coker had
You
to,
handed it to me and asked me to read it. So I
okay,
could speak twice tonight, sorry. Calls for service, Cosmopolis Fire Department had 24 calls for service since the council meeting on the 17th. That must be a typo.
Yeah.
first.
So, yeah, I'm gonna let him fix that on his own. Total of 284 calls as of October 11th. Bold letters here, FEMA grant. CFD has been awarded a grant from FEMA to purchase new bunker gear. Grant awards the department $82,285.71. Being able to accept this grant will help improve the safety of the firefighters and allow to upgrade our safety equipment in the department. Training in progress. Many of their personnel have put in a lot of time into training this year, along with the department working together to become a strong team. Hard work showed on a call last month. We were called for a vehicle fire. The work that was seen from the captain on shift and myself that day made us extremely proud. The crew that day responded to the fire, had water flowing on the fire in about 30 seconds, and the fire was attacked quickly and efficiently as a result of all the dedication of the members of the department putting the serving into the city in advance and the training. And we will continue to train for all different scenarios that we can encounter. So, was on scene that call and it was pretty impressive. Time to pulling up to hoses hooked up and water flowing was pretty surprising. It was like watching a fireman's muster. So the hoses rolling out quick and everything, so. Don't tell him I said he did that good though.
Okay, moving on to our building official, Bill Sedor.
And I actually was on scene before the police chief, so I watched it and, yeah, they did a good
But
job.
Bill just watched it.
Fire start, Phil.
Yeah, we really like to know how that fire starts. Let's see, the River's Edge project is moving along. They've been putting down fill and got all the property lines marked out as far as where the lot lines are. Not too many permits have been issued. This is the slow season time of the year, so things are slowing down. I do have, I will report under new business there, a change in the proposed permit fees for water. I've been slowly working on all the fees. We had that one last year where we made the changes for the miscellaneous fees. Now I've worked on the water fees. My next will be on mechanical and then the building permit fees. That's all I have for now.
Okay. So moving on to the mayor's report, the surplus property at 1312 First Street. We had 3 proposed listings. We selected Premier Realty based on the price they felt they can list the property for, and so we will be listing that moving forward, and I appreciate the suggestion, because I support that too.
Carly, you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, a reminder that next month, we will have 2 council meetings again, and then we'll have another one in December. You know, get the word out. If they haven't watched last week's Zoom meeting, I think it's really important, and if, you know, you still had questions about it, go back and watch it again. I think Carol's presentation really outlined the expenses and where we are with that. And just to reiterate, we are going into negotiations. I think it's next week, a week after next with Aberdeen. Yeah, what day?
22nd.
22nd. Wednesday, so thank you. So we're hopeful moving forward with that. I think with that, tomorrow is the Great Shakeout. This drill happens every year, and when you hear it, don't ignore it. It's a good opportunity for you to take stock, like, what if this was real? What should I do? Am I prepared? We're moving into winter. We've had some interesting weather. I'm praying we don't have that this year. But I wanted you to think about that, encourage your neighbors, check on them, especially if you have elderly residents who don't come to the council meeting, they don't know when they hear the tsunami siren tomorrow, you know, reach out to them, let them know they're okay. This is just getting ready and being prepared. And that's all I have for this evening. So we're moving into new business. So the first item is public hearing on revenue sources. That is, at this time, we are required to do a public hearing. There's no discussion on this, is that correct, Tara? Only comments later on. So we're moving into public hearing on revenue sources by Tara Dunford, our CPA.
So to clarify, I believe we need to formally open the public hearing and know what time it is.
Okay.
And then the public may comment on this document.
Okay.
And I can give a little overview before we take public comment, but we need to open it first.
So we are officially opening the public hearing at 7:15.
So this document was presented last time. It is the projected revenue estimates for 2026 for the general fund. This is required as a preliminary step before we ask council to consider a 1% increase in property taxes. So again, that's a $4,300 increase. All of the other revenue projections are listed here. Nothing has changed since last time. In summary, 3% increase over 2026, over 2025, with very consistent numbers from 2025 projections to 2026 budget. There are a few bigger variances here. Again, the EMS fund moving to a new fund changes the numbers from 2024 quite significantly. The 2025 projections include a total of about $50,000 for the school planning and permitting fees, and then about $63,000 for the RCO grant, which we are not projecting in the 2026 numbers. So then I would suggest we open it up for the public to comment.
Can you share your screen because it's not showing during this?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Is it working? Okay.
Yeah, you're sharing, so
Okay.
that people can see that.
Okay.
Any comments?
Wow.
I'm
Great.
sorry if I missed this earlier, but I was just curious about the drop in the utility and other tax.
The electric utility tax is continuing to decrease, and looking at the numbers, it's not so much, it is decreasing if we look at 2024 down to 2025 and 2026, it's about $30,000. Our 2025 budget was a little bit higher than 2024, and it actually went down. These are just distributions from the Grace Harbor PUD, and I believe it's catching up for the mill closure, continuing to result in the drop off in revenues.
My only comment would be a positive that if Deputy Kenworth gets up and open in 2026, the DNO line hopefully will be increased significantly, so we can hope for the best there.
Yep.
Rollins is on site, and so the plan is to have that open, so that would be good.
Yep, good.
Okay, so we're moving on to item, we close it, so we are going to close at 7:18, item 1. Next, we are going to open.
Hey, Mayor, Mayor, this is Chris Coker. Can you just, also, I think it's good on the record, the public's gonna have another opportunity to comment on the budget at whenever we schedule that, because there's gonna be, this is at least 2 public hearings. So just let the public know that they will get another opportunity as this progresses.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So next, open.
The next one is not a public hearing, so it's just a first read of the budget amendment ordinance. So this is the first and hopefully only amendment to the 2025 budget. We've waited until this point to hopefully capture everything in one go.
Your document's not shown.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, is it up there now?
Yes.
So we've waited until this point to hopefully capture everything that needs to happen in one budget amendment. To clarify, council can approve this as is or pieces of it as modified. This is the first read. We'll come back to you again for a second read. So no action requested tonight, discussion only. So a few things. In the general fund, and I'm gonna jump around a little bit, but we'll start with the easy one in the general fund. So there was a $63,000 grant from RCO for parks. We did not include that in the 2025 budget. So there was revenue 63,000, expenses 63,000. This is simply an administrative cleanup to add both of those line items into the budget. I know council did approve that agreement already, but because the expenditure dollars are not in the budget, we need to get them added. So that's the first thing.
Have we been reimbursed all of that?
We have,
Okay.
yes. I'm gonna jump down to the bond fund briefly. We know we have this $430,000 problem that we've talked about. We got $3 million and we spent 3.4. A couple things happening with that. We need to increase our expenditure budget to cover what was actually spent this year. It wasn't enough to get through project completion, so that's the first $138,000 as an expense increase. We're also requesting to increase revenue by $188,000. This is going to come from the general fund. So bump back up to the general fund. This is an increase of $188,000 in expenses from the general fund into the bond fund. Where are we getting that money from the general fund? Part of it, we're recommending to use the $50,000 from the school plan and permit revenue to cover this. That was money that we didn't count on. We didn't include it in the budget. It came in, we got it. It's excess. It would be great to put that into your fund balance and build it up, but you have this huge problem that unfortunately is more pressing. So that's $50,000. There's $50,500 in the 1997 bond fund and $87,500 in the LID bond fund. Again, in conversation with Cynthia Weed, she has provided us the RCW and the recommendation that these funds must be closed and transferred to the general fund. Once they're in the general fund, you can do with it what you want, as long as it's an allowable use of government money. So we are recommending that we use those funds to transfer and solve part of the bond problem. I'll pause there if there's questions on that kind of convoluted circle. Okay. Macarenco Park requesting an increase in expenditures totaling $8,000 for dangerous tree removal of $5,000 plus an additional $3,000 for salaries and benefits. This is based on actual time spent. This is not increasing the city's overall salary and benefit costs, but rather the portion of Public Works time that's been spent on Macarenco Park. There is sufficient cash available in the fund. Interest rates are still very high, higher than budgeted, so this will cover the overage in that fund.
So how many trees are there that are needing to be taken down?
So at this time, we don't know. We just want to be prepared because we don't know if we have a big storm. You know, we did have to have 2 trees removed last year. We have a fencing issue that is very unsafe that we are looking at getting taken care of. And so with that said, I would see that we will not, hopefully, we're not going to have a major storm where we're going to have issues with tree removal, but we want to be prepared.
Well, my question is, I guess, since we have those funds that are there specifically for Macarenco, is there a reason why that it has to be specifically worded in here? Since we already know that if something does come up there, we have the funds to do that. That's what it's there for. Try and figure out why it is that it has to be, you know, even verbiage here, you know, that if it just comes up as it comes up. Because we're kind of just saying dangerous trees when really there's multiple things up there that need to be done. The garden, you know, fencing the whole thing up there, it's gonna just be, you know, we know that there's funds there to be used if a dangerous tree comes up, because we have it in our ordinance that a dangerous tree can be taken care of without the approval of the council because it's a dangerous tree.
So yes, there's a couple different things at play. Yes, it can just be done. The mayor has a certain authority to just do things.
Right.
And yes, the funds are there in the form of cash within the fund,
Right.
but council still has to approve the total expenditure authority of each fund.
Right.
So we know that the total expenditure budget
Yeah, but
for
my
2025
question
is too low.
Yeah,
And
I
as
guess
far
my
as-
question is, do we have to like have it, you know, worded where?
No, the
dangerous
verbiage,
tree removal,
no,
or just worded as being, you
this, yeah, and this
know, things that come
wording,
up.
this document is not part of the ordinance. So the
Yeah.
ordinance simply increases the total expenditure budget of Macarenco Park. This verbiage is just our narrative of why.
Okay.
And yes, that could change. So if it became that salaries and benefits are going to go up 8,000 instead of the dangerous tree, we wouldn't have to come back to council and
Right.
say we spent it on salaries instead of the tree. We're just giving you some background rather than just saying, we just want another $8,000. The street fund requesting an increase of 14,000 for the sidewalk and driveway at the new municipal building. There is available allocation of utility tax revenue to cover this. It was coded to the street fund. We could recode it and code it to the bond fund and increase your negative. So the 430 we've been talking about could go up to 444. We have the funds, the cash available in the street fund to cover it. It's my recommendation that we just leave it where it's coded and get it done.
Street fund was fairly low though,
It's
right?
very low, so the projections for 2026 are based on paying this 14,000 in 2025. That brings the cash balance down low, but we have enough cash in there currently to cover this.
Is this something that, I mean, really actually needs to be done? I mean,
It has already been done, so.
that's
yes.
already been, I thought it was
Yes.
for the gravel situation out here. So this is work that's already been done?
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So we owe for it.
Gotcha. That was for future paving.
No.
Alright.
1997 bond fund, so 50,500 is the balance in the fund. Again, bond council has said this should be closed out and transferred to the general funds. We're recommending to do that with this budget amendment. Zero out that fund, put the proceeds in the general fund. Again, because you can approve this as is or as modified, you could approve this transfer out, but then say we want to leave the money in the general fund rather than transfer it to the bond fund. You could make that call if you wanted. It is my recommendation that we follow bond council's advice and get these funds closed out at this point. We started with the 2020 UPCO, so we're increasing our expenditure budget to cover our actual expenses and then increasing, again, recommended increase of 188,000 to use these bond funds and the $50,000 from the school to cover a good chunk of our shortfall, not all of it, obviously, but close to half. The local improvement district fund is the other bond fund, so it's what we refer to as the LID bond fund. There's 87,500 in there. Again, same recommendation from bond council that this be closed out. And then attached is the ordinance with all of the totals in it. The ordinance also has a summary of the total increase and decrease for each fund as required. These numbers all tie back to the narratives that we discussed. So Councilmember Darcy, your point, if we look at Macranco Park, we're asking for $8,000. Once that's approved, the mayor can spend that however she sees fit. It doesn't have to be, tied to the narrative. Questions on this?
So moving on to item 3, the 2026 preliminary budget. Tara?
We really covered this in the workshop, so
We can move on.
I think we could move along because the public will have multiple opportunities. So we will have a public hearing on the 2026 budget next time on the preliminary, and then we have the second meeting in November, a public hearing on the final budget, and then the ordinance final adoption in December. So the public will have 3 more opportunities to see this document.
Thank you. So moving on to item 4, the FEMA grant for the fire department. Bunker Hill Councilmember Skinner.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, it's been discussed a couple of times, and it was, a grant was put together a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, the start of the process of this grant to replace the bunker gear for our firemen out there. It does have a life expectancy. the gear that they have, and it is coming to its end. And so this, with the former Chief Bailey and Chief Coker working on this, we've been awarded with this $82,000 grant. The kicker is like most other grants, there is matching funds. And the matching funds for this are $4,114.29. And that was budgeted in the 2025 budget, that 4,000. We were expecting or hoping to get this, so that was already presented in the budget. So what we need to do as council is approve this purchase of this, or not this purchase, but this expenditure for this bunker gear grant. We will, at the time when it comes here next to make motions, we'll put a motion on the floor and see where we move from there.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, Resolution 2025-14, Bill Sedor, establishing water and sewer connection fees for River Edge Waterfront Townhouse.
By city ordinance, council sets these fees for connections for projects. I used the projection, or what was passed when the RV park was connected to the city system. Section 2 shows the tap to the 8-inch sewer at $2,500. That's exactly what they paid for the RV park. There was city time involved in that, but in this one, the only city time is the inspection fee, and that's why it's at $50 rather than, I can't remember what it was for the RV park. The water hookup, the RV park was, I think was a 3-inch tap, and it was set at $2,500. So I did some calculations, trying to figure out what would be a good fee, and I came up with $4,000 for the 8-inch tap for the water line. The city expenses for the RV park was about $1,200, but the city was doing the connections and everything. For this connection, the contractor provided all the materials and did the hookup and everything. The only city expenses that the city had was the standby time for the inspectors, the utility worker that had to be there, and then the city's water utility person, whatever. So there, I think there was like about 3 hours involved in that, maybe. I don't know exactly what it was, but that shows, that's the $391 just for their time. Rather than like on the RV park, it was like $1,200. So, and as I indicated by city ordinance, these fees are set and passed by the city council. So at this time, that's what I was looking for the resolution for these fees.
So what were the old numbers? You said
For the RV park, it was $2,500, I think.
For the water and
for the water and for the sewer
so
tap.
both of them was, so you didn't increase the sewer? Is there any reason for not increasing it?
Because it's the exact same size. 8-inch sewer tap, it was $2,500.
Yeah, but it's been 4 years. I mean, everything has increased. Is there any reason why that shouldn't? I mean, you increased the water connection. Is there any reason why the sewer shouldn't be at that same?
The water was a different size.
The water was a different size. Yeah, the water for that connection was, like I said, it was $2,500 is what was set up.
Okay, moving on to item 6, proposed increase to plumbing permits and fees.
Okay.
Bill Sedor.
In your packet, you have the schedule, you have the current one, and then the proposed. And I did some checking around, basically just used Aberdeen's fees. Aberdeen has been increasing their fees over the course of the last 20 years. And the fees that we're using now were the fees that were basically set by ICC way back in the 90s. And like I said, Aberdeen has been increasing these slowly over time, and I felt we should be increasing ours to be comparable with today's figures and everything. So that's what I came up with. The going from $20 to $45 for the base permit, that's at 45 is what Aberdeen charges. And then some of these other ones, you see down here for private sewage disposal system, $40 to $100. We don't even have any of that. So it's kind of really a moot point. There's some other big increases. Reclaimed water system. That's if we're collecting rainwater, that you're gonna be reusing it. There's some specific requirements for that. So that was a big increase there. And cross connections. We don't really have any cross connections. They're illegal. Medical gas piping. We don't have a hospital here, so. And then other inspections outside of normal business hours. I took into account what I think everybody else is charging and what I have seen. And for the time that, got to come in off time and go over and look at it and everything, $30 wouldn't have even paid my wage to come in and do it. So that's what I'm looking at as far as the proposals for the changes in the fees. On the back side of the page, you'll see state fees, $6.50 and $25. Those are set by the state, and they just increased a couple of years ago, so we can't really change that. So that's what I'm proposing. And like I said, I'll be working on the mechanical fees and the building permit fees. I had worked previously on the building permit fees back in 2007 or 8, but I never got finished.
Thank you, and thank you, Bill, for your work on this. So now we're moving on to public comments. At this time, I will open the floor for public comments only. And just please state your first name, not your address. This is not a question and answer time. The council cannot engage. The council cannot engage with the public. We ask that your comments be respectful and that you limit your time to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments?
I have a question. Kelly Daniels, regarding the waterfront townhome project. So when we put together our pro forma based on our fees bill, we had to do a budget and present all of that. The city council on October 7th, 2024, passed a resolution 2024-12 on the cost for master tap fees. So I have down Section 3B that an 8-inch water tap fee is $1,200. It was escalated to $11.15 per resolution to $1,200. And the 8-inch sewer main tap master fee was increased from $1,425 to $1,500. And then the inspection fees, which cover your staff, is $750. So based on the current resolution that the city's passed, that's the fee schedule that we used when we built our pro forma. So the resolution that you put forward today doesn't match your own municipal code. So you can change that, but you would have to change that when you do your annual resolution. When you look at fees and permits, I would ask that the city review my findings and come back and you can invoice me appropriately. I've got a check, I can pay it today, but based on your own resolution passed on October 7th, these fees remain in effect until they're changed, and there's been no changes or adoptions otherwise. So we build budgets when we when we do this, and so we have to go to code to get that information. That's also consistent with what we did at the RV park as well, so.
Okay.
Those are my only comments.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other comments? Okay. So moving on, new business, council action. For item 1, is there a motion to approve the acceptance of the FEMA grant for the fire bunker gear?
I, Councilmember Collette, move that we approve the FEMA grant for the bunker gear.
Is there a second?
I second Councilman Skinner.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So passes, okay? Item 2, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2025-14, establishing water and sewer connection fees? Is there a motion?
I guess, I mean, I should ask, do we need to table this, Bill, for you to do a little more research before we motion to pass this or not?
No, yeah,
Chris is.
I think Chris
yeah,
is,
what,
Chris is on.
yeah.
I'd like to hear what Chris has to say.
Chris,
Yeah.
could you provide some insight, please?
So you have the proposed resolution that Bill put together. The council can table it if they choose. The council can, if we get a motion, can move to pass it. The motion or the council can do what it wants to do.
I guess I'm asking, you heard what Ms. Daniels said? So
I did. It
guess
sounded like that was a vesting issue. I haven't talked to Bill about that. So that's the first I've heard of any, if it's a vesting issue or what. I haven't talked to Bill about that. I haven't heard about that until 5 minutes ago.
It's just the wrong information,
So council, again, Chris, could you repeat what the council actions, what they can do at this
We
time?
know, we know what we can do. We know what we can do. And if we don't make any
Thank you.
action at all, we don't take any action at all, then it's a moot point and we bring it up again.
That's correct.
So, no. Anyone?
I motion to
Table?
Yeah, I'm gonna motion to table this until the first of the month at the next meeting, so we can get a little clarification and make sure everything's good.
that'd be great.
I think that's our best option as a council.
I second the motion, Councilman Skinner.
So this is tabled at this time?
Yep.
Okay,
You don't have to vote.
So what about the proposed, for plumbing permits, was that something we were just discussing? Is that all that was? Okay.
okay, at this time, moving on, is there any public comment? The floor will be open for public comments. Again, state your name. Comments are to address the council body, not one individual city staff. Please limit it to 3 minutes.
There's a
Okay,
whole crowd
not,
and no one's talking.
Mayor, I just want to clarify regarding that last deal, since it's public comments and I can talk. I just want to make sure the city gets paid the correct amount. And I think part of the confusion is that the developer, the construction team did the work. When we did the RV park, the public works staff did the work. And so there's some nuances and some sections of the municipal code. I think we could solve it in about 2 minutes. I did want to publicly say thank you to Councilmember Spargo for helping with the project and coming down and trying to help us find some shut-off valves. He came down at 9 o'clock with his equipment and was awesome in the middle of the dark with a flashlight. I also want to publicly thank Donnie, who's been fabulous from the Public Works team. He's been great to work with. He's a pleasure. He's catching on. He's learning a lot. And so he's just been great to work with our staff. We did do our main water line connection. We were able to finish that in under 2 hours. It was excellent. The project's going along really well. We're gonna work a really long day tomorrow and Friday before the rain comes. But things are going really, really well, so we're just really pleased about that. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that when this project gets going and we get these lots going and these houses built, we could double the permit fee line on the general budget. So that's another area in addition to have those permit fees when water and sewer and houses get built there. So potentially that could double that line item in the general budget, so something else. So all in all, everything's been great. Bill's been super to work with. This code and tap fee stuff is very confusing. So it's very, very simple to get fixed. I think we just gotta put our heads together. So it's not Bill's fault, it's just really confusing stuff. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so is there a motion, council comments? At this time, the floor is open to council comments.
I would have done this back in public safety if I'd have thought about it. At that point in time, fruit trees all over town are full of apples, pears, whatever it is, and by social media, you can see the critters are out looking for a quick meal. And we've got bear, coyotes, cats, possums, everything out running around. Take care of your animals, your small animals. The coyotes seem to be the size of German shepherds these days. And the bears are coming out more and more. I picked some apples right out of this tree on this lot right next here, and they're scat underneath that apple tree. So they're not afraid of lights, they're not afraid. When they're hungry and it's time to go to sleep, they're gonna try to get their food wherever they can. Last thing, neighbor, price eggs, terrible, bought some chickens, started having some chickens, and then the chickens started disappearing. Well, he took his fish carcasses after fishing and put them in the chicken coop for the chickens to pick on. Well, when they ran out, then the next best food is the chickens themselves. And he was down to one chicken, and that's the one that's been out wandering the streets because it's kind of lonely. And but we can't have garbage cans open and fish carcasses and guts and other kinds of things out and not expect these animals to come and do their business. So tell your neighbors, tell people around that, hey, you know, they might look cute out the window, but don't mess with them. It don't matter if it's a possum, don't mess with it. And try to keep your property cleaned up so that they don't. Again, Sue talked about the leaves on the ground plugging the drains. Well, all that fruit laying there is just nothing but fodder for them. And so if there's a chance on your own property to clean it up, bag it up and get rid of it, but don't leave it lay there. Last, we put a desk in the old administration office in the building. That is council people's chambers. We can use that, want to have a meeting with somebody, you want to do some paperwork, now there is a desk in there. There is a phone line, I don't know what else, as far as cat lines or anything else are in there, might have to just do a Wi-Fi. But it's there to be used now.
So I will add to that office. It's also the community center, and so we'll be having agencies come in, such as
The Olympic Area Agency on
and
Aging.
Capinet. So we'll be setting up a schedule, and just because we want them to be able to come in and provide services to our community too. So we'll have a schedule that you can check with Casey and set up that time. Okay?
So the $4,000 that we have to match for the bunker equipment, can that come out of like the fire equipment or equipment reserve funds to cover that as opposed to coming out of like the general fund?
I would reach out to Till.
Oh, yeah,
because
I didn't, she sits out of here.
Yeah, she has a long drive, so I would reach out to Till.
So that match is out of the fire equipment reserve fund. It was the $18,000 that was budgeted.
Yeah, but there was a 4,000 match we had to do.
Yep, so that's where we're taking the 4,000 from. Part of it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to see if there a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Councilmember Colette?
Is there a second?
Darcy seconds that.
Okay. All right. Being no other business, the meeting is adjourned.
I like this.